Hi, my name is John, and this is just a short video on doing a lab order in the Health One software. So just to start, I'm just going to go through the prerequisites that you require to do the Health One lab order. So you'll get a letter sent out like this here. That'll have a cover letter as well. And I'm just going to go through the hardware and software parts here. Oh, you'll also need to have send in a test uh, lab order to Beaumont in advance of using the system there. So just to start, I'm just going to go through that you have to have the latest software version. So to check your software version, if you click on Help and Web Update, so then you'll see Health One and the version that you're on. If it's got a green tick beside it, that means that you're on the very latest version of the software. Now you'll also need to have a HealthLink cert on any PC you want to do a lab order on. So you'll need to contact HealthLink to get the cert and get it installed. And then when you have it installed, you'll also need to go to Tools and Options and HealthLink, and you'll put in whatever your username, password, and PIN would be, and select the cert that you need. Now, also you will need to have a printer on any PC you want to do a lab order on, and you'll need to select that printer inside of the Health One software. So you can do that once you know the printer is working by going to File and Print Setup, and then selecting by clicking on the three dots for A4 the printer that you want, the driver that you want there in the drop down, and then clicking OK. So those are just some of the prerequisites for doing a lab order. Also, just to note that Medless is being introduced at the same time as lab ordering to Beaumont Labs. So there may be some changes with regards to that there. The lab order requests also will have to come in electronically when the changeover happens. And you'll need to create a testing patient in advance as well. So I'm just going to actually open up a patient here. Called Aaron Lab Order by going to the selector and putting in the name. So this will open up the patient. So just to show you where you can check if you've got the correct information when you're creating the test patients, as per the cover letter, if you click on Edit Patient Administrative Data over here, you can check what you've put in the address, line 1 and 2, and whatever else is required there. Also, this patient would usually have a PPS number and an IHI number, but this is, of course, a test patient. Now I'm just going to go through doing a lab order in this patient. We can see that this patient is suffering from diabetes, so I'm going to try and do some diabetic bloods for the patient. So I'm just going to click on lab request here. This opens up the lab request section, and this icon here is the icon you'll need to use when you want to do a lab order or a lab request for the patient. So if I click on that, this will bring up this screen for you. And basically here you can select the HCP. So say if you're a nurse, you can select whatever doctor would be for the patient in the drop down. And then also you can select the hospital, which in this case will be Beaumont. And the referrals lab order. Now you can see that Aaron lab order here is not on the Beaumont system. So what we can do in this case is create a new patient because he hasn't been in the Beaumont system before there. So I'm just going to click on create new patient here. And this will bring up the lab order window. So you can see here the demographics and the hospital we've selected, and you can see an emergency phone contact, which will be a contact for yourselves there. And the clinical details is what details we're popping in. I'm just going to pop in diabetic bloods here. And then I'm going to select the diabetic bloods I want to do. So in this case, I'm going to choose a HbA1c, a lipid profile fasting, and a liver profile. Just the days or the diabetic bloods. Also, just a note here, you can put in the time the specimen was actually collected from the patient by just typing in here. And you can also change your priority from routine to urgent if required. And you have your date that the specimen was collected here as well. Just to note as well, you've got antibiotic therapies down here at the bottom that you can select if required. And you also have more labs here, priority 2 and priority 3. So the labs orders that are available to order electronically, they're the most frequently requested orders as agreed with the GPIT. So that's why these ones are here basically. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to remove these labs, or sorry, not remove, review these labs. And you can see here we've got the biochemistry results that we need there. So what we can do here is we can amend if we wanted to add something else on by clicking on amend test. So I'm just going to click on amend test here because I want to do a vitamin D for this patient as well. And again, I can review and commit that order. So when I click on commit order, that will show us what specimens we need. We click OK. That will create the lab order request and give you the option to print it off with the barcode that is required there. So I'm just not going to choose to print at this time. I'm just going to cancel that there. And I'm going to close. Once again, you can see on this lab order request what you requested there. So I'm just going to click on close. And you can see the lab order submission here. You can also see right beside the lab request submission, there's a little egg timer. So that just means that the lab request has not been returned yet there by the lab. That will change to a green tick, I believe, when it comes back from the lab. Now, if you ever needed to print this again, you could double click on the lab request submission. And that'll bring up this window with an option to print here. So I'm just going to close out of that there. Now I'm just going to save this here first of all. And I'm just going to close out of this patient and go into a different patient. So this patient here. So I'm just going to do another lab request in this patient by clicking on lab request up here and clicking on the icon again. So once I click on that, you may see this box here. If you're in an older transaction, you can see that this transaction was done on the 18th of the 4th previously, but I might want to create a new transaction. So I'm going to create a new transaction in this case, and I'm going to put it in as a lab here in this case. So I'm just going to click OK. So once again, we get our window to put in our lab order. I select Beaumont Hospital. So in this case, Jonathan Test exists on the Beaumont environment, so you can select him on the list here and just click OK. Now, so once again, we're in the lab order window, but this time I just want to see, you can see here, select lab order favorite. So I just want to show you how you could create favorites for yourself there. If I click on the drop down here, we've got an option of diabetic labs. So if I select that there, it'll ask me to enter in my clinical details, but it'll also put up some labs there for us. So just to show you how you create a favorite, if you just go up to manage favorites here at the top, and then you have an option to create new list. And basically you can put in whatever you want to call this here. I'm just going to call this but you could give it whatever name you might remember easily. So I'm just going to go next, and then I'm just going to select randomly 2 or 3 bloods. Specifically, I'm going to select an INR here just to show you. When you select some labs, you may be asked to answer another question there. So in this case, I'm going to select the oral anticoagulant in question, which is warfarin, and click OK. Also, once again, I'm just going to put in 1 or 2 others here. You can see that would be required for a thorough culture. Now, that might be a very realistic list, but I'm just going to click on review on that there. And again, you can amend the test and you can save a favorite if required there. So I'm just going to save that favorite. And you can see it'll appear on the list here. Also, you can remove any favorites that you have there already. So I'm just going to decide to remove this Diabetic Labs one by clicking on it and clicking on delete. Now, so if we go back to the lab order, again, we can select the favorite that we had there, put in our clinical details, just to show you, and review again, and commit that order. And again, I'm not going to print in this particular case here, but you'd want to print and make sure that the printer is available and able to print the request form with the barcode on it. So there we have our lab request in. Just to note that HealthLink certs for all users will need to be stored in a shared location within the practice, and I believe HealthLink are going to notify you about that there. Also, just to note that when you do get your labs back from the hospital and they do come into the patient's chart, I'm sorry now, but I can't show you this because I don't have any labs to take in there, but when the labs come in, there will be an option when you're looking at the actual labs themselves of original view over on the right hand side, and it's kind of recommended to use that there to look at the labs. Also, with the new lab system coming in from Medless, the way the labs look may be slightly different, and there may need to be some mapping done, but there'll be more information about that there, I'm sure, before time. So basically, also just to show you how you would download labs, if you click on the little yellow envelope and go down to HealthLink Web Service here and click execute, that would download whatever labs would be available for you at that time. Now I won't have any labs, so not really much point in doing that there because this is a test environment, of course, but that's how you would do it. So that is basically how you would do a lab order on the Health One system there.